Hi, welcome to Morning Talk Show. Today is a conversation with actually a close personal friend, Nickelas Smokey Johnson. Nick is an artist and a musician, and he's someone that I've always had, or for a long time, have had very deep conversations with, where we get quite real, quite honest. And so this was kind of an experiment to see if the conversations that we have translate to a podcast episode. So Nick, rather than being a stranger, where most of the people I talk to on the show, I met them face to face just moments before you hear the conversation. This is someone with a lot of water under the bridge. So I enjoyed it. It's a little more real, a little more, I don't know what you would say. I mean, we get into some deep personal topics, art and music and cultural, social movements and that kind of thing. I hope you enjoy it. It's probably going to be somewhat regular as bonus episodes. So like and subscribe, hit the bell, and thanks very much. I like your number
I've
one.
never noticed someone looking in the camera and it making me uncomfortable, but I've never experienced it on a Zoom call, apparently.
Yeah, it's all
Like
about
I think
context.
I mentally embody a hypothetical audience to the person staring at me, where
Yeah,
you are staring at me.
right. Yeah, well, I think in these Zoom meetings we become avatars, right? Like we're not like
Right, yeah.
I don't know, there's enough of a removal, but like I think I don't know. It kind of works weirdly for my personality. Like I have always been a very removed person. Like
Hmm.
uh I always feel like I'm kind of like half there everywhere I am, and half of me is kind of looking from a different perspective or something. Like that's just my weird, like I know we've talked about this before where some yourself and some other friends of mine seem very much more experiential, like you really like to dive in to things and
Right, yeah.
really get like super fully involved, like some of you guys will spend the whole day or the whole night working on some kind of art project and just like lose
Yeah.
yourself, which I can do with me. I can do with recording, but it's happened so rarely in my life. And so the
Huh.
Zoom thing is actually less unnatural to me because it's like this nice split between the unnaturalness. Because I like to write my thoughts out. Like I like to get
Yeah.
every word just like perfect. And
Hmm.
then when you're in person, you always feel like you messed it up and you did not represent yourself well. But this is like this other kind of weird, I don't know, netherworld, which is good for me and horrible
Yeah.
for other people.
I haven't quite gotten used to it, but I also like don't have a job and I'm mostly fine with being alone. So I haven't been like having many of these visits. I've
Mm-hmm.
had like, and the ones that I've had have been, um, like I was I was like basically, I guess this is a thing in Belgium. I'd never heard of it, but a lot of their art events or talks or whatever, they have the equivalent of a court illustrator who like
Oh,
documents drawings of
okay.
all of the people.
Yeah.
And so I got hired to by a couple friends who were working on a thing out there to be part of a virtual Zoom conference. So there was like, I don't know, there was screens, like you could scroll through all of the different mosaics of people watching. It was
Okay.
like, I think 4 or 5 screens of however many people fit on a screen,
So pretty well
all
attended.
involved. Yeah. And so I didn't really feel like I was being observed.
Mm,
I didn't
yeah.
have this strange but most of the conversations that I've had with you or any friends, I walk around and do stuff.
Yeah.
So this is like, it's still a little distracting. It's not unnerving,
Right.
but I like you were what at, I lost a sentence in the last thing that you were saying because I was like, I'm looking at Aaron's face and I'm trying to figure out if it's a mirror or not. Like, is his jaw usually that way or
Yeah.
that way? You
Yeah.
know, like,
Well, yeah. No, I that's a fair point. Yeah, I wonder, am I backwards?
yeah, I
Am I
don't know. Am
backwards?
I backwards? What
I
side
don't
is my
know.
hair parted on?
Oh, your hair is parted on what would be your left, my
Okay,
right.
so this is actually my left. This is my left
Right.
hand.
Yeah. Okay. So that's
So this is correct.
that's correct. Yeah, that's correct. What do you is it backwards in your screen?
I can't tell because you don't have a part in your hair. Oh, I saw your wedding ring, which you wear on your left hand, and
True.
that's your left hand. So I
Oh,
guess
sweet.
that's just always your face.
Okay, yeah. So it's backwards
Yeah.
for me though.
Right. Okay. Oh yeah, it's
Yeah,
backwards
it's
for me.
backwards for me.
Mine is backwards for me.
This is the most amateurish thing. It's like
I
two
hope you're not
people.
recording.
No, well, I definitely am, but that's fine. It, no, it's good. It's good. I want to be more casual.
Mm.
And so like the art thing you were illustrating at, did you end up liking what you illustrated?
I did actually. I quite liked it. I was surprised how much I liked it because I don't do that kind of thing very often. I
Yeah,
mean, I'd never done that, but I don't do like quick portraits of people or that
right.
kind of thing,
On the spot.
which is something that I didn't really realize. I mean, if I had thought about it or had been questioned about it, the value would be very apparent. Um, but because I've gone down a trail towards making less representative, less
Representative.
representative art,
Representative.
I just like, I guess I let that interest go fallow.
Mm,
But I haven't like stopped drawing, so my skill hadn't
right.
gotten slack.
Mm,
So I just got to like, I guess it's like any creative practice where if you get good at one part of it and then you get to transfer it to something new,
mm,
you get to, like drawing faces is not new, but I haven't done that particular thing in
yeah.
years and years and years. And the last time I did it, I didn't like how I drew them, where uh, I'm more I'm more happy with my skill in that department now. So I was happily surprised by how these faces were looking as I was drawing them.
Nice. Yeah, and it could also be that a little bit of the analytical side of your brain gets shut away um, when when you know you're doing it kind of live. Like
Mm-hmm.
just like how when you sing live, it's different than when you're trying to record a vocal take
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
live.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I wonder
yeah.
about that.
That's, I think that's a very good example. It's like, I mean, you and I both know the difference between those two things.
Mm,
I've been rediscovering it a lot more over the last couple months, trying to, when I've taken a break now, but that song a day project I was
yeah,
doing.
I love it.
And then I just did yesterday
Love was
a
such an easy
live
game to play.
taping.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I just did that song.
These are the kinds of
Um,
awful jokes I can do when I'm talking to a friend and it's not some important intellectual that I'm nervous to talk to. So sorry
yeah,
about the
yeah,
bad jokes.
no,
Sorry about the
yeah.
bad jokes. It's not a lack of respect either. It's just that I know I'm not going to lose your friendship.
Mhm. Um,
Sorry. I derailed you.
yeah, I'm easily derailed today. P.S. Because yesterday I did this taping
Right.
that's what I was talking about,
Right. Yeah.
at Metro Cinema.
Right.
And I have no idea if it went well or not. I think that it probably did. but from what I've seen of the filmmaker's work, but I don't know him
Mm.
really well yet. But it was 11 hours of being on the whole time. I
Whoa.
just had to keep, because he wanted like camera angles, and
Oh,
we
wow.
started to deconstruct the idea of what a live performance is. So even though the audio was recorded in a live performance, we wanted to incorporate parts of the building and, get like incidental shots, and
Mm.
um
Yeah.
but it just meant that I didn't get to relax
Right.
at all for 11 hours,
Wow.
except for he did one shot that didn't involve me, and that took about 10 minutes. But like, I didn't eat, there was no
Oh,
smoke
wow.
break, there was like, I
Holy cow.
scarfed down a banana while he was doing that 10-minute shot, and
So
that was it.
you guys
So
were
my
you were
brain
in
was a
the
little.
sorry. You were in the artistic kind of in the artistic zone, which is kind of cool.
Yeah,
Uh so
yeah, it was nice to be in that intense place again, where 11 hours have passed, and only for brief moments of discomfort was I aware of how long it was taking, because
I get
we
that
were
way.
just working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm jealous because I actually have to stop. I have to choose carefully when I go into my recording studio because I will stay up until 3 or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
With no feeling no pain, barely
I
remembering
was
to
really
go to the
surprised at
bathroom
that the last when we were working on those songs, before the world fell to shit.
when we were allowed to be in
Um,
the same room.
yeah, because you have children and a home life and all this other stuff that feels like too much for me already.
Yeah.
And so for you to be willing to go later than I was willing to go, I'm like, oh, I'm getting
Yeah.
pretty tuckered out here, Aaron.
I've got a problem though. I don't know. I think I get that is the one time, and I think that's honestly okay. So I'm thinking the focus of our chat today will be things about art and that kind of thing because that's something that
Okay.
I'm interested in talking about, and you're an artist in multiple ways. But that is as someone who's always removed, like, and always looking at things from 100 feet up. That's one of the few things I get right down in, like, in the muck. And like, to be honest, even with my children, it's sometimes a fight to stay in the moment. Like, not always,
Mm.
but that's like the only thing other than one other thing that I that I very rarely am not in the moment in
Yeah.
either thing, no.
Yeah.
Um but I do, I mean, I do find, and I think you probably find too, that like uh doing something that you feel like you're made to do, or like is sort of just in you to do, like it is takes energy in a different way than doing other things,
Hmm.
it takes energy in a way that is a lot less kind of existentially draining or something like that. Is that
Yeah. Yeah.
find that, or maybe you are
Well,
invested in a different way?
I find that absolutely, because it's simultaneously fueling or feeding a starved man. It's like most of everyday existence is bad, uh, and exhausting and draining. And so these things that I love that require more focus and more intense intent, um, uh, on the one hand, because they require energy, they should be exhausting, but they're that wonderful feedback loop where I'm
Right.
getting,
Yeah.
so I can go and go and go without
Right.
eating, and
Yeah.
I won't notice that the time is left, or
Yeah.
past. And on like a day like yesterday, because I'm fairly out of practice of. I
doing the
can,
long
I've been
hauls.
working alone, but there's this added drain of like interacting with a
Right.
human the whole time, you
Right. The
know?
social side is different for sure.
Yeah.
I'm solitary too in my working most of the time.
Yeah. So that, but even that, I didn't notice it was draining until today. So the day before yesterday, I spent most of the day in the theater setting up because I had to do all the sound capture and also set up the visuals of the stage, and I'm definitely not a minimalist when it comes to decorating.
I
So
couldn't tell because you have 3 amplifiers, 2 paintings, and
yeah,
a tapestry just in that
yeah,
narrow field of vision.
yeah. I like to hit my eyes with as much bullshit and color as I can.
Yeah.
So I'd spent the day setting up doing that stuff, and like the visual element is a lot easier for me. Sound engineering is always
Right.
it's such a mystery.
Yeah.
And then there's the added element that I'm not used to of having, I had to obscure all of the recording equipment
Right.
behind a curtain, and I'm in the middle of a stage. So every time I need to tweak a level or something, I need to run
Yeah.
and see if, did
Yeah.
I redline there? Yes, I did. I gotta move
Oh
this.
man,
And
that's
so
the
it's
worst.
it
Yeah.
was that was tedious. But then yesterday, we did this 11-hour marathon, and that's only 2 days. But today I was ruined.
Yeah.
uh
Fair enough.
and I'm trying to reconcile or come to grips with or get comfortable with something that I always used to be fine with when I was younger and had no responsibilities and a much lower need for an income or anything like that.
Mm.
I don't know how aware I was of how much downtime is needed in order to absorb and gestate whatever it is that turns into the stuff that we make. Um, but I naturally did it because I could be a sloth.
Mhm.
And so I was way more productive and
Mm.
prolific artistically. And
Okay.
as I've gotten more responsibilities and I've gotten more of a idea in my brain where I have to be working on art, the more I don't let myself have downtime,
Right.
the less I'm actually being prolific. It
Yeah.
takes me longer. And I
Right.
mean, part of that I'm sure is aging, but I'm trying to build into the schedule of my days and my life that this is something to be taken seriously. This is prep, you know.
Mm. Okay.
It's a weird amorphous prep that is dangerous to respect because it can very easily turn into just
Yeah.
like watching shit
Yeah.
TV all
Right.
day for weeks on
Yeah.
end.
Just pure turd
Um,
on the couch
yeah,
syndrome.
exactly. Like it can definitely turn into that.
Yeah.
But there's a there's a bit of that is vital.
Yeah.
And in the same way, I can't remember if I was telling you, like a few weeks ago, I guess it's been a month now. I quit coffee cold turkey.
I think you mentioned
Um,
that. Yeah.
yeah, for the same reason, because I'm like, I don't have a day job. I don't have that horrible, awful piece of shit part of my day that
The artificial.
I need to put some drug into me to get through it.
Right.
So when I'm at home and I drink coffee, I'm not swinging a hammer to burn that anxiety that it builds up in me.
Right.
And so it just makes me into a freak that can't do anything. So I'm trying to get myself in really good shape, as an artistic person,
Yeah.
uh, and prioritize things that my redneck upbringing wouldn't let me prioritize, because that stuff
Right.
is for pansies,
Like needing
and
rest.
yeah, well, yeah, like, because like my grandpa and my uncles and my dad, like if we went
Yeah.
camping or just around home, like dad would love to slam the door open of my bedroom and be like, people die in bed, and I would say to him, people die at work, and he'd storm out of the room.
Oh, that's funny. That's awesome.
um,
But I mean, it does highlight like how I don't think there's a formula for what, like if you're an engine, if you're the art engine, it's not like there's exactly a formula for how to keep the engine running the most kind of efficiently. I think, I mean, there's a formula for you, but I mean, you can't apply your formula to other people, because
oh yeah.
for me, I'm the opposite of that. Like, it's not, I guess I could probably stand to have more downtime than I do,
Hmm.
but when I have had downtime, it's like, and had the ability to have sloth and then work, I don't do well with that at all. Like,
Yeah.
I do way better with scarcity of time. And I've never found the perfect balance, but I'm quite sure it would pretty much never involve many like days of sloth or naps or whatever,
Mm.
like, because I just I have a complete numbness, that I fight the numbness more than I fight like
Mm.
anxiety or
Hmm.
emotion. Like, a lot of
Yeah.
people fight anxiety and have to deal with depression and that kind of thing. And I guess there's a numbness to depression, but I know that mine isn't. So like, to me, it's just this yawning numbness that's just like, I remember when I was younger and I lived at my parents' house, and I had no responsibility except for my shift work job. I would sleep way in. I would like wander around, maybe make food, watch TV, and I remember the sensation of my mom's key going into the door as she got home from work. Like, knowing another human being was coming in, and my brain would go bing and activate, and I'd realize everything I didn't do that day, the things I
Yeah.
had meant to do that I didn't do, and the things I should have done. And like, all of a sudden I had all this energy, and my mom, like my parents thought I was probably nuts, but I ended up writing a whole bunch of songs about this sleep, about a complicated relationship I had with just like sleep in
Mm.
every sense of the term,
Yeah.
because that was the bane of my existence. So I guess it's
Huh.
just different for different people, because I definitely am more creative now that I have 3 children and a full-time job and a podcast and a musical
Yeah.
project, and I don't know, yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
Still
I
not
mean,
super
that
productive, but
that totally makes sense to me. Like I can relate to that, which is why I was saying that the rest and the downtime, not so much the rest, the like what to an outside observer looks like sloth,
mm,
where I'm just like, you got to think, you got to daydream, you got to let your brain go to places. Um,
yeah.
but it's very dangerous because I am an incredibly lazy person.
Mm.
And I would very happily uh, lay on the couch until I died. I not happily, but
I would very
my
self-hatingly
my
lay on the
mind would
couch until I die.
approximate some kind of excuse for that to happen.
Right.
Like it would start as rest, and then it would be like, well, I'm so sad, and so because depression's such a uh, demon, it just like and it's got all of these wonderful dance moves, and it takes you
And it
on
knows you
these
pretty well.
trips, and yeah, it knows me very well.
Yeah. I see. Yeah.
So
Oh, sorry.
I'm trying to protect the things that I need to do to be the most efficient, actually most efficient artist that I can be. And that's a real dance between like letting myself do that rest thing and not letting myself fall into immobility.
Right. And yeah, that's interesting. I feel like I've known you through a lot of different phases of and at this point, I guess with no shows and stuff, I've been fairly impressed with what you've kind of still been able to grind out, what you've still been doing. And what comes to mind though is that I wonder, like, what is it? I mean, you're clearly serving something with what you're doing. You clearly have a sense of, like, you're not a nihilist, and there's something to do with like art, that something in art that is a life vocation. Like, is it the final, like, is it, I guess you must enjoy the process and the final product, but do you have a waiting for those two things at all, or is that too specific? Or do
you were gonna rephrase it, or
I guess I'm just wondering, like there's a sense of purpose that comes from it, I guess, and like what I guess what I'm just trying to move towards is not like a boring interview question of which do you prefer, the work or the final product.
Yeah.
But like, what's the actual life force that you're that, like, why do you do it? Why do you do it?
Right.
Broadest possible question. Sorry.
No, it's funny because I've had a version, not the same question, a well-meaning, condescending version of that question asked of me probably 6 times in less than a week.
Oh, sorry.
No, a different version of that, but it's had me thinking about it. The version that I've been asked is because I've found myself in conversations around money, and like I generate more money with my visual art than with my music, but I've been working my bag off. Just realized how crass that sounds now that I'm being recorded.
Please.
But doing this, a song a day and a drawing a day, and giving them to a modest audience on Instagram for free and YouTube. And I've kind of burned out a little bit because it's been, I don't know, it's been a couple of months. I guess the drawings are more recent, that I committed to that, but the music I started before Christmas.
Yeah.
So anyway, the conversation starts with somehow in the arena of money, and then I inevitably start bitching about how I'm tired and frustrated, because even though I didn't start these projects for any reason other than that I needed to do it for my sanity, because I was losing it, and it's easy to forget that there's only a few things that make me happy, and these are oral or visual art are the two of the things that, and arguably combined, the one thing that makes me the most happy, and content, and fulfilled, and gives my life anything resembling meaning. And so when you're sitting in your house and you don't leave ever, and you have no audience to be beholden to, there's and this like existential numb doom dread that is, part of a lot of our psyche these days. I I wasn't being productive in recording music for an album, or if I picked up a guitar, which I rarely was doing, it would be half-assed. And having an audience requires that I give it my all,
Yeah.
because failing, I don't know if it's a fear of failing them. I feel like it's a fear of failing art,
Well, I hope it would
for
be,
me
yeah. Or failing
to,
yourself,
yeah.
putting yourself in a
um,
position where there's a fear of failing yourself or failing your purpose I think is a really good thing. I mean,
yeah,
yeah, as
it's
much as it's terrible. Yeah.
necessary. I don't know if it's necessary for everyone, but there's definitely a harnessing of guilt or something like that it has utility for me.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, sorry.
uh, no, go ahead.
I've wondered if there were people who don't need that at all. Cause I kind of can't relate to that in a weird way. Like, the, I mean, the danger of failure and then actual failure, I think just need to be a part of my life.
Mhm.
To it's an animating like tension,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's so animating, like, and it's so purpose filled, like without like some kind of like sort of Pollyanna kind of overly optimistic vision of the word purpose, but like I mean, being a dad is like feeling a constant sense of potential failure and actual failure, because it's so
Hmm.
multifaceted. And sorry, I know that I'm not going to make it all about breeding, but um you know and I think that I didn't start to wake up from like an overall life numbness until I had that amount of like actual failure under my belt, until I had
Right.
that
Yeah.
many moments of you know disappointment and angst and like weeping and like I don't know. It's pretty funny. Like it's pretty and I think art has always been that for me as well. That's been like the thing where I become a piece of crap, and then I have to play a show, and even if it wasn't great, I'm still kind of like, okay, like I did
Yeah.
something, I did it, okay,
Yeah.
and you want to keep making it better, but I don't know. Um, I think you'd really like the interview I had yesterday
Hmm.
with Gary Lockman from Blondie.
Oh, yeah. Right.
That's so
Yeah.
funny to say, because
Yeah. That's crazy.
we talked about well, kind of um a sense of life, I guess. Like and he's probably the least religious person I've talked to. And I've talked to atheists, and I've talked to, people who are philosophical and um not necessarily actually religious, but there's always been a
Hmm.
sense of kind of religiousness about a lot of the people I've talked to. But his whole thing is like he's kind of got this whole stable of these crazy people, like Colin Wilson and what's his name? Like Aleister Crowley and like what's the
Oh, he's friends with, or I
no,
mean,
no, no,
he's
no.
he's
Like
not around, but.
he's not. He did know Colin Wilson, who is a prolific author in like the occult and all that. But
Hmm.
just like what's the other guy? There's one more name I wanted to think of. Rudolf Steiner, and like these kind of nutty people who
Hmm.
pursued a vision of life in this kind of what's the word? Uh, uh, Sort of like an octopus grabbing at every every bit of life they could come across, like
Right. Yeah.
Rudolf Steiner
Yeah.
was like designing buildings, and he wasn't
Yeah.
like, he designed buildings that are still around,
Mhm.
because he was just a nut. Like, he wasn't an architect, but he was
Yeah.
just a guy who was like, oh, there's life over there. Like, there's
Yeah,
life here. I don't
man.
know what it is. I don't know. Like, it's, maybe it won't be around tomorrow. Like, maybe it, like, so I've got to follow it right
Yeah.
now. And like this sense of, and that's kind of what I think of the artistic drive as being. And I feel like people probably have that outside of art, and they're not fed enough they're not fed enough like artsy fartsy bullshit to actually apply it to their lives. Like, artists, we get
Yeah.
some of this stuff just fed to us. Like, we find these people and we
Mhm.
kind of latch on to certain ideas, but there must be something for an accountant or whatever. Like, I don't know, these people that I can't always relate to, where there's a sense of life and they're just not like, and maybe a lot of them are, but I guess I don't know what I'm trying to say. It's just a sense of life that you get, and it's this very fleeting, flickering thing, but
Yeah.
it's like the suitcase in Pulp Fiction or something. Like, you've seen into the suitcase once, and
Yeah.
and like, you're looking for this.
It's a bizarre thing, and I don't know how people without it function. I mean, they seem to function. I I I don't really know how to. I don't mean to like belittle people who don't have this, because it's a wonder to me that someone who doesn't have the disease of pursuing art in their mind, it's a wonder that they have joy in their lives. But they generally, you can't generalize like that. But somehow people get by without ever giving a shit about this invisible, bizarre, absurd obsession.
Non-lucrative, non-industry.
Yeah. Oh, that brings me. So the question that I kept getting that resembled the one that you asked me. I had been complaining about how, because I was getting burned out, how I pay to make art. I'm paying for materials and paying for time, and I'm not generating an income. And it was petty, but I felt a little bit miffed because I was burning out, that I was giving a performance every single day to an audience. And when I would, on Bandcamp Friday, I'd be like, hey, like,
I have
maybe
music.
you've been enjoying what I've been doing, and it'll cost you like $5. It would be like a little tip in the jar that has invisibly been passed around every day for 2 months and come up empty. And each time that I had that conversation, the person would have the same, I think it was an attempt to be insightful or something, but they'd be like, well, would you still be doing this if it wasn't for money? And I was like, what the fuck kind of question is that? Like, I have been doing it for no money I'm a middle-aged man, and like, you're like, I don't think that the intent was to call into question whether or not I was committed to this stupid thing that I've given my entire life to. But like, I give everything to this, it's a yawning chasm that sometimes gifts me back with like, a little nod or something. But it's everything. And when I have a lapse for a second where I'm like, oh shit, I'm a human being in a capitalist society, and I guess I need to generate some money to pay bills. All of a sudden it's like, oh, so you're just in it for the money, huh? Like, yeah, exactly. That's easy for you to say, and you're like, artless, very well paid job.
Well, you should just have like you should have some spreadsheets with income versus expenditures for the last 20
Yeah,
years
well,
of your life.
I should probably have that for the tax man too.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, I guess I'm in. I think we have a lot of friends in the same boat where we are now either pushing 40 or in our 40s, and have, I mean, had to come to terms with in some way that this is like that this is just kind of what comes out of us. It's like what we have.
Yeah,
It's like what we have to do, and
yeah.
and it does feed a sense of purpose in some way. And but yeah, I don't know the money side. I don't like to. I've been told I was afraid of success before. I've been accused of being.
Oh, yeah, many
terrified
times.
of success. Just whew,
Yeah.
can't.
And dear friends of mine who are
Oh, they're lovely. Like they don't.
successful to by some metric in the art realm, have like accused me of being like afraid of selling out. It's like,
Right.
This isn't some like 80s punk aesthetic. This is like, I feel I have a life debt.
Yeah.
My when I when my faith evaporated, I had no reason left to live. And I found myself, just staring at the sky in the evenings and being like, this feels like it's supposed to mean something. And, attempting to read but it was art that like reinvigorated my life with some mystical meaning.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand why this matters. It's insane. It makes no sense what the thing that I'm looking at. And it makes less sense that it would matter to me, even if it did make sense to the artist, because like, who cares if I get what they're feeling? Like,
Right.
none of that should matter. But it brought something out of me. And I mean, I was making art before that, but I was like, and driven in a very naive way to just like, I just did it to do it because I was told I was good, I guess, by some ants or something.
Yeah.
And so
well, you were good. I've seen the drawings on your parents' walls from when you were a kid. You've always been good.
Those were different days.
Sort of precious moments.
I mean, I was a better draftsman as a young teenager than I am now.
Sorry.
No.
Throw a question in there though. Because there's one thing you and I both have, and that's a background, yours more distant than mine, in the Christian church.
The Christian church.
The Christian church, the Church of Jesus Christ, not of Latter-day Saints. But what I always felt, because I was sort of like doing art or doing my music while still attending, and you've done a lot of your most of your work since leaving, but I always had this weird what you were kind of just talking about. I had this weird aversion to meaning, and we're talking about we're talking about art giving our lives meaning, and yet before I had any ability to say why, I knew that it was a good thing to obscure what the hell I was talking about in my song. And then, it's been this long-term journey where like I listened to, I don't want to name names. I would listen to a band of some kind. And then I would be like,
and did they have an animal in their name?
Actually, no. This would be out of you wouldn't probably guess. I'm talking about the Shins. Let's just say it. All right. If the Shins watch this or listen to this, I'm so sorry. But I would listen to like a band and I'd be like, okay, it would seem to have that artistic thing. to it, whatever that little bit of spark of being artistic. Because when you're from the Christian world and you've heard enough Christian music to realize there's no spark of there's no spark of any kind of danger in almost any of it.
Oh
Of any
God.
kind of like, there's no spark that something new is going to come at me, something I'm not expecting is going to hit me. And like, so anyway, and then I would listen to a band for a little while longer and realize, oh no, they're just using fancy words. There's a distinct meaning here. I mean, I'm talking about me having a fairly immature reaction. I'm not defending this,
children.
But I would be like, 20 years old, 18 years old, and be like, no, now I know exactly what he's talking about. And I realize he's just using fancier words. But I know what he's trying to say. It's just the same bullshit. It's just the same love song. And I kept wanting to push to not understand, to find music that had the spark that I loved, where I didn't know exactly what was happening, and that was actually a virtue. And then like you get into like Neutral Milk Hotel or something, and you're like, okay, I don't know what he's talking about. Yes.
All of a sudden it feels like you're dealing with someone who's touched the divine, and like,
I don't know what that is though. Like what, like it's, and I think it's actually, I shouldn't say I don't know what it is, because I've thought an inordinate amount about this kind of thing, where I do think that one of the things that artists do is access the imagination as an actual portal for unknown things to come into reality in a way, but not in a way where you're like, all right, now you're in reality, fill out this form and go take your place with the rest of my like nicely ordered thoughts. I now understand you. Like there's something about things coming from your subconscious and getting put into art without getting labeled and without getting neutered or whatever, without, you know what I mean? And just put them there. And it's kind of this, like, it begins, and this is where like artists get flack, because it begins as, yes, thinking, like sort of self-consciously rejecting meaning, man. And like, I'm beyond that, man. Like I'm making real art or something. It begins with this very self-conscious thing that I think is kind of immature, but it's grasping at this thing that's like, I don't know, like, is this landing? Is this making any sense?
Yeah, I think it's making sense. It's meaning something to me.
There's a poem. There's a really short poem. I interrupted you. Sorry. What were you gonna say?
I was just going to respond, but you weren't done, so it would be rude.
Sorry. No, I interrupted. But no, there's a poem by William Blake that is, and one of my other guests, Mark Vernon, I think quoted this in both interviews I've done with him. One is, it says, "He who binds to himself a joy doth the winged life destroy. He who kisses the joy as it flies lives in eternity's sunrise." And I think like it is written in that kind of rhymey thing, and it can sound cheesy, but it's that's kind of an important one to me. And another one, there's this one I think it's Hindu prayer, and I've said it before in the podcast, but I'm obsessed with it. And the beginning of it is, "O thou who givest sustenance to the universe, from whom all things proceed, to whom all things return, reveal to us the face of the true spiritual sun, hidden by a disc of golden light." And that reveal to us the face of the true spiritual sun, hidden by a disc of golden light, hits me every time. Like, like there's beauty out there, but there's actually something hidden behind it. And sorry.
I think that art has oftentimes, I'm not gonna like pine for old days that I didn't live through or anything, or claim anything about the present, but it feels frequently as though popular art in most mediums is am I starting this sentence the way I want to? I think I'm heading down the wrong road.
We can back it up.
delete that.
Sure.
No. I was messaging a younger guy today. One of the fulfilling great things about putting myself out there with the song a day thing is people who would have like uncomfortably slunk away after a show have like I've started having correspondences because I'm there every day on their screen instead of, once a month or whatever.
Right.
And there's that nice distance of not being in person that for
Right.
an introvert and a shy person, that's you're safe if you're just typing. So I've been having a very thoughtful conversation, or a good conversation with a thoughtful younger musician who's been struggling through a haze of meds and other things to like rediscover songwriting. And so he was like explaining some of his process to me today in a way to, sort of pump me for ideas or something. How selfish conversations are always. um, anyway, so we were having this conversation about songwriting, and I was really taken with a memory of an old rule that I had set for myself. And rules are always just kind of fence posts. It's fine to break them in your artistic pursuit, but it's nice to have them there as reminders.
Right. They crystallize the thought.
Yeah, and
At
I
least
had a
of what you
rule
don't
that
want.
I would never share a piece of artwork, especially a song that was about love, because I was like, okay, most of my favorite like 50s, 60s, 70s pop songs are about love, and that's great. But do I have a single favorite romance novel? Do I enjoy rom-coms? Like, do I not walk away actually from conversations if people are talking about their fucking crush? Like, love is a boring thing in art.
Right.
I'll say as a caveat.
Sure.
But
I
it's
mean, we
like,
can.
it's such a trite thing to write about. Sure, it's the thing that changes the world and motivates us all and everything, but it's the unknown that is fascinating to me.
Right.
And if a love song is good, it's probably on the merits that it is symbolic of a greater truth,
Right.
or just the melody was really good.
Right.
Well,
but melodies say something too.
Yeah, I just who cares about like a cat hat Matt rhyme about boy meets girl? Like,
right. Yeah. No, I get
those songs are for teenagers,
right?
And that's fine because I love me a 50s pop ballad about teenagers and love.
Yeah.
Specifically that one and others.
Or when they go around Dead Man's Curve, that also adds a death.
Yeah.
Nice when there's death.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, death is more interesting to me because it's still unknown.
Right.
I mean, what love is, I guess, is unknown, and that's why people are captivated. But I think it's mostly that people are trying to sound poetic about wanting to fuck, is what love songs are. Or they don't have the emotional maturity to like think about other things or something. Right. I don't know. I'm sounding like an asshole, but
well, I think we can. I think we can sufficiently like
tiring.
preface this by saying, like we've all felt that. So even though everybody might be thinking about 5 or 6 love songs that they love, I agree with the sentiment of what you're saying. That the way it's been the way it's been handled a lot is very difficult to handle. Anyway, but you made
that was a real roundabout way of commenting on what you had asked or said.
Well,
about art.
And like I think love though is one of those interesting things where um I know what you mean by love, but I guess it's for it's important for different artists to know where the life force is for them, right? Like there
Hmm.
could come a time in your life where all of a sudden that floodgate opens up, you know, and I don't think you'd be closed off to that based on some old
You
religion.
mean love?
Yeah, love. Like you could write about it
Yeah. Well,
in some way.
I've written more love songs in the last couple of years than I have in my life,
Yeah.
because I've tried to like not be a, excuse me for barfing in my mouth audibly. That was not planned.
You didn't plan to barf in
um,
your mouth? Oh.
no,
Yeah,
I've been
we
drinking
distinctly
bubbly
agreed
water.
you weren't going to barf in your mouth until 10:15. It's 10:05. Come on, man.
Okay, okay.
Look at your
Um,
itinerary. Did you even
but
print it off? No. Okay.
I'm out of ink. um, I like what I meant about rules being just guidelines, or like it's a it's good to remember for me so I don't get self-indulgent, you know,
Right.
um like I love my lady and I have omitted that from something that I represent artistically.
Mm.
But we are in a new phase. I've never come remotely close by a decade to how long we've been together. And so there's some mystery there to talk about. But a lot of songs aren't for an audience either, you know.
Right. Hmm.
So
Interesting. So you have songs you've written that aren't for that won't be sung for an audience, you think?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I wish I did. I don't have those.
It's like I don't keep a diary, and I should. I I've tried, but it always ends up being. I know there's utility to that repetition, but my diary would oftentimes just be like, back when I kept it, it'd just be like, you know, just a list of grievances, you know.
And another
So
thing.
yeah, so instead of trying to keep an artful diary or
Yeah.
anything, I just like I try and make something.
Yeah.
And oftentimes embedded in that thing is something that was only for me to discover, you know. It's not
Uh,
for someone else.
that's
I
really
think
good. I wish I did that. Oh, sorry. I wish I did that more. Keep going, you think.
I think I was just going to try and say that in a more interesting sounding way.
One of the more like humorous examples of kind of art reflecting ourselves is one time. Well, Delia likes to my daughter Delia, who I never mentioned my kids by name on the podcast. So interesting. So anyway, you know her though, and
Hmm.
she went through a phase of wanting to hear an original story made up right on the spot, and
Oh
so
yeah,
she
I
was like,
love that.
tell me a story. And I was like, okay. And so I went into a variation of the Frog Prince. And I was pretty happy with it actually. At the end of the story, I was like, damn, that was pretty good. Like, and she liked it. She actually asked me to tell it
Mm.
again. And I should probably write it down because when I thought about it, it was like, this is the story of me and my faith. Like it was ridiculous. Like the frog, he had been living in the castle. He was the king, but then he became a frog and he was too ashamed to be in the castle anymore. So he went out but he was outside the castle, but he actually didn't like the food that frogs are supposed to eat. Like he became a frog, but he hadn't developed the taste to like flies. So he like
Yeah,
snuck back into the castle and like I'm like this is me, like, and there wasn't a moment of it when I was saying it that was intended to be allegorical at all.
yeah.
I was just
That's
trying to
like,
make a spin on a story,
oh
and I was
yeah,
like, every detail of this story is a
yeah,
description of my personal like philosophical psychological journey, and it was just
yeah,
it's crazy.
yeah. That's so exciting to me. That's like that's mostly how I write. Is improvise like that. It's not my daughter asking me to tell her a story, but it's like landing on a couple of chords and then just rolling with it.
Yeah.
And then the thing that comes out is usually startlingly telling, in a way that I didn't intend. And I try and keep that spirit alive when I'm making art as well, which used to be really easy for me, because like I would sit down when I was young and was able to just sit down and draw all day. It wasn't unusual for me to just draw for a 10-hour sitting. And
how old are we talking when you
I
say
would go
young?
into a zone. Well, at that point, it would be like maybe 16, something like that. Like I was drawing most of the time for most of my when I could move my hands and stuff. But for these like really intense sessions, I would go into a zone, and of course, at that point, I believed I was a Christian, and so I thought that I was communing with Yahweh or something, which isn't just well, that's a whole other conversation.
Don't get me started.
But I would go into this zone and just draw and draw and draw and draw, and I would come out with these like incredibly intricate things that were rife with symbolism, and then I would read them afterwards to myself, and like I'd understand some things that I didn't understand before, because I was just scraping the bowl of my head out and shaking it onto a plate, and then I was like, okay, well that stuff was obscured in here, and now it's there, and so I can make some sense of it. And so that was a very, very important part of my well-being and my art making. And then I moved to Edmonton, and then I started to get encouraged to pursue professional art. Not that I hadn't made some sort of an income when I was younger through art. I'd been doing that, like selling drawings and stuff, but like getting art grants and trying to make public art and those kinds of things. And those are, I don't want, if other people who do that are like getting off and finding meaning and that kind of thing, that's great. And my experiences, when I have had opportunity to do that, the long-lasting experiences have been really good. But the process of going through that bureaucracy is, pardon me, I'm burping in the mic. No bubbles when podcasting. Flat water only.
Oh, I never thought about that.
Yeah. The bureaucratic process of trying to get grants or get approved for they always require that you explain the art that you intend to make to them, which is anthemic. Wait, am I saying that word right?
Endemic?
Endemic. It's not an anthem. It's counter to the whole process and whole mystery of making art to me, because I would have to tell them what I was going to make, and why the hell would I make it then? Because you're asking me to explain the lesson that I learned through making it, and I haven't made it yet. So why would I bother? So it ended up being this flat thing where I finally figured out a way where I could go through that process inside of my mind and sketch things out in that fluid state, and and then I would compile those things and be like, okay. And so in my mind, it was made already. and
Okay.
I got that thing.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't bullshit that I was proposing to them,
Right.
but it was really hard to get to that point.
Right.
It required me to propose a lot of bullshit, because I would have to come up with something artistic
Yeah.
and meaningful. And like I don't I don't make things to say things. I make things to learn things.
Okay.
And art is
Yeah.
always a question to me. And
Mm.
the trouble that I've gotten into is always from people who think that I'm making a statement,
Right.
and they don't understand why I make art.
Right.
And I have nothing to tell people. I'm trying to learn something.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
Now,
great.
of course, there's times that you deviate from that, and you have a little bit to say.
Right.
But for as far as like the sacred aspect of art making,
Right.
for me,
Right.
it's that.
Well, and it's really interesting that you say the word sacred because, um, when you talk about the grant applications and having to say what you're going to do, that just smacks of modernism to me. Like I think about modernism. I don't know, like I don't want to get too philosophical or whatever, but there is this kind of faithless, anti-sacred element to our default mode of thinking, I think. And I'm not saying
Mhm.
sacred in like a religious or especially not in some kind of prescriptive way. But like there is a very well, I mean, I guess there's this notion that the end must be known to our actions, like and it goes way beyond just art. um it's like and I'm not anti-science and I'm not anti whatever, but like um what bothers me about even atheism is not that people don't believe in God. I couldn't care less in a way about that. It's the fact
Mhm.
that it's when it becomes we must not believe in this, that like
Right.
it's actually important that we know what the end is. If we don't know what the we if we don't decide and prescribe what the end must be, then
Mhm.
our whole process is suspect. But I'm flipped inversed in my brain, where I'm
Right.
like, if I know what the end must be, the process is bullshit. I
Mhm.
am then I'm an automaton.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't say, you know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
when I'm an automaton, when I know
Right.
exactly what my end must be. um
Mhm.
so I mean, it's this reverse thing where it's like, oh, you believe in like some sacred or spiritual realm, uh oh, you're a slave to that or whatever. But I'm like, i'm
Right.
i'm a slave when there's a conclusion that I must reach. And I'm really this is sounding so much more like religious than I want it to sound. It's not that.
Uh,
It's kind of in a way religion has done as well. I've probably been worse, honestly, than any kind of science
I would.
or atheism at creating this. I think religion is actually far more suspect in this thing
Yeah. Yeah.
of prescribing the final definition of things in this kind of
Yeah.
in the realm of
Like
the
from
imagination.
someone who actually walked away from that, from a religious tradition, I am much more bitter towards what those institutions have, how they have undermined and gutted and monetized the idea of wonder.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Just killed
But
it.
I'm just as cynical, or nearly as cynical about, as you are, atheists, as defined by atheists.
Yeah,
Like, I don't believe in God,
right.
but I don't have the fucking hubris to say there's no God. I mean, how can you speak about the unknown like that?
And even that
It's
wouldn't bother
completely
me.
uh, it's just absurd to me to think that, I guess because I'm an idiot and I don't um I can't pick through the data to come to such a final conclusion.
Yeah.
That it's troubling. But yeah, there's just a general in Western society. There's a general utilitarian approach to the destination, you know, and of course there's like all kinds of like cutesy little phrases to reclaim the wonder, like it's not about the destination, it's the journey, man.
The journey, man. Yeah, and I think that is
the journeyman
thing. It's the journeyman. We've probably got the most sort of conceptual infrastructure for that kind of thing of any time in history, maybe any culture. You know, there's so much TED Talk bullshit about sorry, no offense, TED Talks, but this is my problem.
There goes your sponsorship.
Dang it. This is my problem with inspiration, though, is because things that are inspiring often, you know, when I don't know how to describe it, like you sort of, you look around and you realize there's way more inspiration going on in this society than there is good shit being done. You know what I mean? Or like, that's not even, this is not, I don't want to get into one of these cynical art conversations, right? I don't want to be that guy. There's probably more great art being done right now than ever in the history of the world. And I just, I just mean like the outlets of inspiration seem totally disconnected from where like good things come from. I guess that's more what I'm saying. I'm going to make a statement about amounts of good art, but I would make statements about amounts of inspirational things being like, and we've all like, it's been like, I think the nice thing about this era is that it's come to this point where it's obvious to everyone now. Like we've all seen the Instagram post where it is like, sexy girl in yoga pants, or like,
I've seen that one.
Or even in like even in like lingerie, and and you know, it's like a quote from Mark Twain or something on it, or underneath it, and it's like an inspirational quote, and it's and you're just like, wow, the actual like value of inspiration is at an ultimate all-time low. And I would rather I would be more likely to be interested in the art of some conflicted, tortured person who in the misty forest of their mind saw a little glimmer of light go that way and just ran at it because like, what the hell else am I gonna do in this misty forest? Like I'm gonna go find out what that was and try and transmit that or something.
Yeah, I
don't know.
Oftentimes wonder why the attraction lies there, because I definitely feel similar. Like for a bit, this is going to sound like a justification, but it's genuine. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like the ass shots on Instagram for what they are.
You don't subscribe. You just.
But no. But I want to give an honest answer as to how I came across this, and I'm not like hiding it. I just can't think of how I came across. There was a pole dancer I started following, and I had to make a conscious decision to follow because she was like making all of these like attempts at depth in the things that she was writing and stuff, and sounding very interested in health, in mental health, and in spiritual things, and I realized that there was a bigotry that I had, where I was like, well, how deep can a pole dancer really get?
Right.
You know, like you can get a deep pole dancer for a pole dancer, but I was like, that's pretty insulting, considering like I have had for half of my life at least, have been trying to reclaim sexuality, my own sexuality,
Right.
from the bored, tight clasp of Christianity. And so how dare I undermine this woman with a gorgeous body because I'm looking at her body first.
Right. It says something about you probably first.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely. So I tried to challenge that by following her. And I did for a few months. But I didn't get where I hoped that I would get.
Right.
Eventually, like, she started getting, like, I guess because her account was monetized or something, she started getting more and more plastic surgery and stuff.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, I was still challenging myself. I was like, think of Genesis Peorage. Think of like how augmenting your body isn't wrong,
Right.
but it was such a superficial augmentation that I struggled, and I was like, I'm thinking about this too much. I gotta just.
Oh, that's the thing. if it's analytical, because I know what you mean about Genesis Peorage, where there was something there was a life force in Genesis's work that was very non-analytical, right? You're not like it wasn't forcing you to pretend you saw something there, and I mean and that's a personal thing, right? Even your decision doesn't necessarily reflect on that account. And I know what you mean. Like I do certain things, or like one of my purposes with the podcast is to really search for these voices that would have been prohibited to me, in a younger day. And that's why I've had Connor Habib, who was on the show, is the ultimate example of that. And he is a gay pornographic actor. I don't think he does it at all anymore. Now he's an author and stuff. But like just when you can approach these things with honesty, there are those outlets of there are those people that are like, this throws my conditioning for a loop enough that I know, like, it's important to follow this. And I know exactly what you mean, but you do have experiments in it, and it's not always successful. But
that was I've gone down a couple of those ones because, like, I find it's a lot easier. I mean, I've found like great value in listening to your conversations with Connor and with Buck
Angel. That was
Buck Angel,
transsexual.
But that, as someone who isn't mired in the swamp of sexual conservatism or something like that, that wasn't hard for me to, like, it wasn't life changing. It was just like, yes, this is a great conversation, I'm enjoying this. Where as a largely heterosexual man, I have to challenge myself with the notion that a porn star can also be intelligent, a female porn star, because when I go to look at porn, I'm not looking for conversation. And so there's a part of my mind that needs to be altered. It needs to be corrected. It needs to be where it's easy for me, not because Connor is a man, but because if I was to watch his porn, I would be less specifically tantalized. And so that part of my brain wouldn't be clouded or something. I don't know. We're in dangerous waters here.
No, I know. I was going to say this is like, but this is good stuff, because I do think it's I think I just clipped. That's annoying. I hope I haven't been clipping this whole time. But I think that I really don't want to be the person who pretends that we don't have these completely ignoble things that go on in our head. And it's exactly, it's kind of the same it ties into this modernist conversation too, because there are just a lot of assumptions that, you know, there is an ideology that we're almost born with that,
Yeah.
I think, in the modern age, there is pressure to make it look as though we've never had that stuff. And, or if we did, we don't now. You know what I mean? Like I never thought that women weren't as intelligent as men, or I never thought, I
Yeah.
mean, that's a harsh one, because I actually don't think I really I don't think I ever thought that women were less intelligent than men, but you know, I never had a bias against female erotica,
Right. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, and I
Like
think that,
going back in time and retroactively applying the lessons that you have learned or are
right,
supposed to have learned in
right,
polite society now,
yeah,
applying that to your younger self instead of just admitting like, hey, you were born unable to walk or talk, so
right,
like all of those other things had to be picked up at some point and you didn't
yeah,
have it beforehand,
yeah.
you know.
And you're given a lot of stuff, and so I really, I think that the element of danger in you know, in conversations about these things is worth it. I mean, I wouldn't have a conversation, honestly, if I knew that someone was going to come on the show and might, uh you know, I don't know, like I would feel strange having a conversation with someone who I thought was a piece of shit, um,
Right. Right.
about those things, right? Because we've all had those, and then it
Yeah.
sounds like you're on the same page, and then at a certain point, you're like, "Oh shit!" Like,
Oh God.
oh
Oh,
no,
those are so
oh
scary.
no, oh no. You're like, "Oh, we're talking about the real stuff now," and then you're like,
Yeah.
I have to run away now," and
Yeah. Oh
and
God.
expunge this from my mind. But
Did
I
I
don't know. I
tell you
appreciate it.
just a one of the most extreme versions of that in my life, that experience? I think I might have told you about the when I was had my time on the internet, where my art was and myself were being called into question.
Yeah.
Um, I found it very hard to go out in public or to play shows or even attend shows because it's a small scene, and I felt very sure that I mean, I don't think the term cancel culture had been
Right.
coined yet, but we were headed in that direction, and I didn't want to be I was scared of some self-righteous Nazi puncher thinking, well, I read something, and so I've decided that because of what someone else said, he's a Nazi, so I'm going to punch him. Like I thought I was
Right.
going to get hit because I made uncomfortable art.
Right.
Um, um, so I was having a hard time going out. Anyway, I ended up braving. There was a fundraiser. I can't remember what group the fundraiser was for, but it was right when Trump got elected, and it was to try and like ease the pain of people who were feeling affected by that election. There, you know, doom got real heavy
Yeah. Was
for
I at that? I think I might know what you're talking about, but anyway.
um Matt, I
Yeah.
think, from Mangled Tapes put it on, and it was
Okay.
like
I
it was
think I was there.
supposed to be a night of like just, you know, because a lot of people were freaked out, and even though we're north of the border, it was still like
Yeah.
it was
Horribly
still
negative
heavy,
vibes.
and yeah. So I didn't want to let my new anxiety keep me from the things that felt important to be a part of in my community. I was being accused of being exactly the person that I could be more and more perceived as I was being too afraid to go to important things.
Right.
Oh, why isn't he showing up if he's such a good guy? You know, and it was
Right.
like,
Right.
but because it was that kind of an event, I knew that the people there would be a higher ratio of people who might think that they know this guy in a negative light, and so my anxiety was higher.
Right.
Anyway, I've set the stage. I went outside for a cigarette. I did that a lot that night. And a guy I know came by with a guy I didn't know, and he was like, "Oh, hey, this is Smokey. He's that guy I was telling you about who's having that hard time on the internet." And the guy was like, "Yeah, man, I'm really sorry to hear about that. It's really bullshit what they put you through." And I was like, "Ah, thanks. It was, we're all figuring stuff out." And but then the more he talked, the more he established that it wasn't bullshit because they misunderstood me and judged me. It was bullshit because they weren't white people and they shouldn't have a voice or a say. And then he started talking about like the generations of Nazis in his family and stuff, and I was like, whoa, man, we are not relating at all here. Like,
oh, that is intense.
Like you think that what they were saying was bullshit because what they were saying was accurate but not wrong or something. It was so
I can't
fucked
imagine.
up.
That's horrible.
I started shaking because I was like, I've left the house and now I've entered into a whole new hell. I'm like, so not only do my peers, I think, not relate to me anymore, but the new people that think that they relate, and I mean, this wasn't like a whole community, it was one guy. Yeah. But it was symbolic for me in the moment because I was like still going through all that gross transition into a new reality. But yeah, that being in that conversation, that kind of conversation where you think that you're like, you're trying to navigate what you have in common, then you realize that there's like these two major pillars that are polar opposites.
Yeah. Wow. That's intense. I can't imagine. Yeah. I mean, I guess I've never, that's an extreme example of the type of story I was thinking of. Yeah. But sometimes
I've never had a version of it quite that extreme since.
No, I've just had this.
But that was one where it was like, there's something, like, it was awful, but it was also like, it was extreme. So there's a lot to learn here, like a lot to learn about how much about how I am perceived is special and should I protect, and how much of it is like do I have to dog whistle more to like people that I'm not totally not aligned to? You know, like, because I don't like sloganeering, like, I believe that Black Lives Matter, but I won't put a sign up and I won't say, I won't scream it, and I think before all of this stuff happened, maybe I would have been more inclined, but I'm afraid of slogans.
But
well, perhaps I need to lean harder again the way I did into,
I mean,
it's just left and right is so fucked up now.
Yeah, no, it is. There is a skepticism that creeps in because all narratives are so polarized now. And I mean, I hate to even use that term because it's, but like I have lately been, see now, I'll venture into politically incorrect territory. I've been growing a little bit skeptical about the lockdowns for COVID-19, and like that's just, I mean, it's a light skepticism. It's not I would never, like, we accidentally went downtown yesterday when that rally was happening for the anti-mask shutdown rally, and I was just mortified to be anywhere near it, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm now in this position where I'm like, there may come a time where, and I don't want to say it will happen, but there may come a time where I think that the lockdowns should be lifted a lot more than they are. it bothers.
Heretic.
Yeah, well, it bothers me. It bothers me that the big box stores are going to survive. I feel like we were just getting to a point where local businesses, smaller businesses, handmade businesses with locally sourced things and organic things were really getting a foothold, and you could find some really good ones that sometimes you could even afford to eat at or go to or whatever. And like, it was really kind of becoming this nice thing where people were valuing this stuff, and all that stuff's going to get, a lot of that stuff it's going to get really thinned out. The ones who survive are the ones who are super, super smart. And so I wouldn't be surprised if before too long, I'm not in favor of the types of lockdowns we have. And so, but this is the problem, is when I have that opinion, there is no venue to be like, to express that, because the venue
it's
where
not
they were
even an
protesting
opinion yet. It's like a
no,
question.
it's like, it's a thought. You can't entertain it. So like the man yelling about the commandments of Jesus Christ at the legislature, and I asked Aubrey, I was like, does that man sound like a loving man? He was like, no. He's like, I want to go knock the microphone out of his hand. I'm like, good for you. We're not going to do that. But anyway, 8 years old. But anyway, I was just like, I cannot throw my hat into the ring with that guy. Like, and and so what do you do with those things? I mean, this is a much more minor thing. I mean, the issues that you were dealing with in your art were much more fundamental to the to the fabric and history of our nation, and so
they were just historically accurate.
And processing some genuine generational trauma. But anyway, that is the problem, is that, again, the end, everybody's like, I know the end of where you're, it's the slippery slope. And this is the thing, is I grew up with the slippery slope, and I always thought that the slippery slope was, that's good. You got to watch out for the slippery slope. You got to stay on the high road. Don't go to where the slope starts to slope. It's slippery. And I'm just like, but if you consider the slopes in most things, and the pit is here with the white supremacist, anti-mask, anti-lockdown guy who will, cough on you on purpose. But all along the way, who knows what kind of insights there are. And I shouldn't choose that particular one, but in anything where people say there's a slippery slope, like the satanic panic, like, there's a slippery slope. You play that Dungeons and Dragons and you're going to end up, but you leave the back door open for demons. And I really feared demons. I did fear demons.
I did too. I
may still fear demons,
real fear.
Just this much.
Yeah, I think I might have a bit of that residue.
I think you have a demon personally, but you just won't deal with it. But anyway, I mean, that's my
defines
thing.
me.
The slippery slope thing removes any kind of interesting wisdom and slant that you could get on things, which is why I feel like what we need is kind of real postmodernism, where we need things where we kind of realize we can pluck the good stuff from a lot of places that aren't considered like taboo places. We could, I don't know, like there is an inherent danger in it, and slippery slopes exist, but slippery slopes really exist when you're an ideologue, when you're a religious person, and you're just leaping from savior to savior, that's where the slippery slope exists. Because anyway, I don't even know if I'm
no, I agree with you. I agree. That's why I'm very wary of slogans.
That's kind of what inspired like what I was saying.
It's dogmatic fundamentalism almost killed me once.
And it's
I'm not going to let it I'm not going to let a new form of it, as well-meaning as it seems, inadvertently get into my life. I want to live in this world and navigate it with my senses, and not because I've been told. I want to learn my lessons.
Right.
I don't want to be taught.
Right.
You know? Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it does. Like, because the slogans are this form of inspiration that kind of puts out all the little, they put out little fires, and like, I don't know how to describe it, but I remember, maybe not slogans, but I'm thinking more of like little sayings and clever turns of phrase. Because when you're young and you start to be like, I have a hard time thinking that gays are going to hell. Then some real kind, soft spoken, Christian leader will put his arm around you.
He'll have a little rhyme for you.
Yeah. Well, right. Yeah. Like, there's things you can.
Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve.
Okay. God is love, but he's also just, or whatever. And just these little things that get stuck in your head. And I guess that's, we're actually talking about two different things in a way, because that's not exactly slogans. I think the slogans you're talking about are sort of very low resolution things, that like very low resolution things that sound good, but they have this huge yawning potential behind. Like, they have this massive diversity of good and bad that are behind, right.
They're just like, they're so ambiguous. They're so blunt in how non-ambiguous they are, that they also, they're just so, it's such a mess, and they're unnecessary, because it's like, all of a sudden the whole battle becomes about grammar, where it's like, no, all lives matter. Like, okay, so now that's the two sides. It's not even about people anymore. It's about like,
Black Lives
Matter. What does Black Lives Matter even mean? It's like, well, now we've completely lost the point. There's a really important thing to be learned and to be said here, and you're fighting about whose slogan is better. Like, just
I guess that is
it's so,
because unequivocally, irrevocably, Black Lives Matter beyond in a sacred sense. I mean, that's the thing that's so frustrating about the movement and the argument over it, is that it's such a sacred idea.
lives mattering,
yes, and Black Lives mattering, and obviously. And so anyway, I don't know, these things are tough. Are we going to put this out on the internet there, Johnson? I love it.
I don't know. We're just talking about slogans. I've already established that I think that Black Lives Matter.
Yes. Oh man. Yeah, it's really interesting. And the doors are open now, but like,
how have we been going too long to change subjects?
No, not because
for me. The only issue that I have with this subject is that, like, I'm not we're two white guys, first of all, and I have no speciality in this field at all. So even if I think that I'm contributing to the conversation, I'm probably just being stupidly redundant.
Well, I was more thinking about the conversation about the slippery slope and the polarization, and how difficult it is to want to align yourself. I mean, ourselves with anything. And when I'm on, when I'm thinking about what I want to put out into the world, what kind of words I want to put out into the world, I typically avoid I don't know. Okay, so I'll say that what I feel whenever I get mired into these kinds of thoughts and my fingers go to, I mean, conversation is different, but when my fingers go to the keyboard and I'm in my Twitter or I'm on my Facebook or something, I think in a very real way, all of us are in a fog in terms of morality, and we are in a fog that was created very largely by Christianity, where we are moralistic. We are naturally moralistic. I mean, and you know, like everybody's different. Maybe you're not moralistic, but I think that my life is partially characterized by resisting some kind of uh, moralism, and the reason is that we don't have, like, deep down, we don't have this love of mystery. We have this almost like automatic and annoying and robotic conditioning in our brains that tells us that we know in some way what a black person is, that tells us we know in some way what a woman is, that we know in some way what I am,
Right.
you know, and that there's this spirit, like, and I think of it as spiritual. I don't think the word spiritual is necessary, but there's something down in you know, the basement of our minds. It's like, it's what we call knowledge. It's you know, like that what we are even characterizing as knowledge is not correct. And so that's why I pursue this kind of like philosophical and verging on, unfortunately, inspirational sounding stuff, that I am trying to unseat people's view of themselves. I'm trying to say, like, you're a huge mystery. And one of the reasons that I have no fucking idea what is going on with you. No, but no, everyone is a massive mystery. And at the very least, you can approach yourself as a mystery because of how dangerous you can be, you know, because of how much you can contribute to bad things, just because of how deceivable we are, and how, you know, if people get a hold of our sense of moralism, they can make us do things. They can make us, I mean, then the amount of hate that's out there from all sides and all people, and the amount of justification people feel in their hearts for unleashing on other people something that they would never feel was appropriate to be unleashed on them. This speaks to some
people are
kind
just
of
primed and ready to
it's the death of intuition, it's the death of transcendence, it's the death of wisdom. And I don't want to be involved in it. And and unfortunately, it's frustrating, because I feel like the two ways that you can attack it are through art, which you never know if anyone's ever going to see it, and also having a message in your art is kind of bullshit anyway. So by just doing art that embodies this sense of the transcendent mystery of the human experience, that's one way. And then the other way is sort of through discussions in philosophy, which are inherently prohibitive to people who don't like to talk about this stuff, which I fully understand. Like, some people don't want to talk about this stuff. You know, people like some of your family members that you grew up with, you know, your grandpa or whatever, who could build a, you know, beautiful thing out of wood, and maybe not even explain exactly what he was doing, you know, like the people with those beautiful people with those kinds of minds,
their
they don't want to,
strengths and skills require that they don't think about these things,
right? And so how do you get people to, I don't know, anyway, it's a sense of, and the anti-woke conversation, and we just kind of had a little mini version of that anti-woke conversation, is where so many people end, you know, and they think it's actually like the woke movement or conservatism. Like they want, there's this, and that's another thing we've inherited, is this sense of the enemy. Like this, the modernist sense is Jesus and Satan, you know.
Yeah.
And
But yeah, it's so deep in the framework of how we think. Like, not only were we raised Christian, but our parents were raised Christian, and the greatest part of the society that we had access to was built by Christians. Like the influence is so deeply. Now, I don't want to come off as railing against Christianity specifically. It's just like how it's been harnessed and integrated. I guess this is all kind of echoing the lack of mystery or wonder conversation that we started.
yeah. Well,
And yeah, it's dismantling that's so vital. It's so important and so difficult.
so difficult.
You know, like the I'm always reticent to talk about this stuff. The experiences that I've been allowed to be a part of with my adopted Cree family has been so vital to me regaining a sense of wonder and mystery in this world.
Indigenous
because
none of
that scaffolding or framework is there. It's on the ground, in reality, in history. Christianity did a number on it, on the people, but its influence on the traditions and the ceremony and all of that stuff,
that stuff survives.
None of this grew out of that, you know.
Right.
Like
their culture is not a reflection of that.
Yeah, exactly. It is of this ground, and Christianity is not.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
If it has meaning for you here, I guess it has utility. But I feel so much more. I feel so much less lost as a person who lives on this plot of land now that there's some invitation to learn from people who learn from the land, from this land. You know. Like, none of the traditions that I grew up with were generated here.
Right. I mean,
I was generated here. And so there's I never felt right, you know?
No, there is such a huge tension. There's a constant tension. And like, I think that Western culture has been causing so much cognitive dissonance in people's minds, and has all of these kind of feedback loops that keep people blaming each other and themselves. Like, depression, people can blame it on something, and I don't know how to describe, but I mean, it's not surprising that we have such a massive amount of depression in kind of Western culture, right?
Oh, yeah. I don't know how anyone isn't depressed.
It's a blessing when you're not. Like, it's not that you are better or you've done something better. It's just something in your chemistry or your conditioning didn't kick you down that particular shithole.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I thank goodness for that. But for myself, I mean, because I haven't suffered from depression. But anyway, my point is like, we've got this system. It's pretty airtight. It's a little terrarium where, or that's not the right word. What's the one that's sealed? Where anyway, it doesn't matter. But the moral framework that we have, this black and white moral framework, depends on sin. Like,
Right.
absolutely needs it and
Mhm.
gets off on it. Like, you will never see a more passionate and inflamed person than an old lady railing against sin. They just love it.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah, and there's a glee.
Yeah.
They're doing what now? Like,
Yeah.
and I don't know. I mean, I don't get any sense of that punitive kind of weirdness from indigenous culture, but I can't speak on that. But I guess I can just
Right.
say that we have this just extremely dissonant culture in Canada, and I really do think that the way forward is to reconnect, and humbly reconnect with the people
Yeah.
who know what's up here,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Like I run the risk of sounding like a goddamned hippie.
Go ahead, safe space.
But I really do feel that part of the sickness and the curse of this society is the lack of connection to the ground underneath the concrete that we laid. I think that we are a part of it, and we need to listen to the people who were here before the concrete. And of course, those actual people aren't around, but their teachings have survived in the ancestors or in the descendants of those people.
Yeah. Generational
transmission.
And
yeah, there's a lot of I don't know. I've got no lessons in this arena because I'm a complete novice. I'm a lucky student. I'm just grateful to have opportunity to feel less lost in the only place that I've ever lived. It's a big thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's it's a form of redemption when you can feel and this is like, I'm a person who has never felt at home anywhere, really.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know,
because you're a ginger.
Because I'm a ginger, yes, because I'm the spawn of Satan. Because I don't know, it's just a personality thing, and it's about all the dissonance created in my upbringing. But like, if you can, it doesn't necessarily have to come through indigenous stuff, but I think that is the strongest way, that their version of spirituality and all that. But if you can feel at home through anything, if you can feel a sense of being present and grounded and
right
at home in your own, if you feel at home even in your own consciousness, I think that's just something to like stop and be in, like, not even analyze it. And I do think that art can create that at its best. And it's what I want. If I can create anything in the world for other people, like if I was ever going to be evangelical about something, it would just be like wanting people to feel at home in themselves, and it's so important that I almost don't care where it comes from, like, or what label or what slogan or whatever. And it's so individual that slogans obscure it, you know, for some people. So,
Mhm.
you know, people, we're looking for formulas all the time. We're looking for,
Yeah, exactly. Like I was about to interject and double down with the importance that I in the last couple of years, the things that I've been um, learning from my new family. Um, but and I've got like little cute things that I can say about that, you know, like doubling down on, like, if you have for myself, I kind of liken it to having like if you have a map of a mountain range, you know, it's not going to get you through another mountain range, you know.
right,
Or if you've got a list of like uh, uh, edible plants for survival, and you're in a different country
right,
that doesn't have those plants, none of that knowledge is useful.
right,
And so I feel like that transfers here as well,
right.
but
Sure.
not everyone requires the same lessons that I
Right.
feel that I am requiring right now. So like I had a chance to like start create start spewing my new rhetoric.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. It's
but
so
it's
easy to
like
do.
because I'm wired to want to clamp down on
Right.
something that feels like truth.
We
This is
all are.
true,
That's the
you know?
thing. Yeah. You're,
Yeah.
and like it is kind of fundamentally discouraging. And I think about this all the time. It's fundamentally discouraging to tell someone that nobody can help you. You know what I mean? Like, or like, that's not exactly it, but
Right.
it's like that they're to tell someone, especially when you're from a Christian society, there's no savior for you, you know. Like, you know, I mean, there's no human person and no human system that is guaranteed to give. Maybe there is a system for you, and I honestly think some people come up through that same system I came up through and end up as the best possible version of themselves. Not necessarily that they're
Right.
not perfect, but they would
Mhm.
probably have been way worse off anywhere else in the same
Right.
system that caused me to be this conflicted person, you know, feeling like I had multiple personality syndrome. That's a bit over dramatic, but yeah, so it is sad to tell people in a modernist society that there's no formula, that there's no ideology. It's not a matter of hopping from ideology to ideology until you get to the right one. It's actually
Yeah.
about realizing that um on all of those stones you're hopping on to try and find something solid that's not going to move, there's this
Yeah.
light emanating from around them in different places, and nobody else can see the light you can see between the cracks of these stones, and you have to follow, and sometimes you have to dig pretty deep, you know, to find what's going to free you from the
Yeah.
cycle, you know,
Yeah.
from the ideal
Yeah.
cycle.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true, and I've definitely had to combat that in myself in this particular arena, because like Joe, my Cree dad, he likes to joke, and uh, he gets in shit for using the language that he was raised with, but he likes to joke, oh, here's my white son, he wants to be an Indian, um, and you know, it's just ribbing, and it's fun, and it's his way of including me, but at the same time I'm like, well, no, I want to continue pursuing who I am, you know.
Right. Yeah.
I don't want to be anything other than what I'm becoming,
Right.
and I don't want to as much as rich and vital as the lessons are that I'm learning in this tradition, I don't want to adopt this as my new Christianity, you know.
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
It's, like it's grand and vast and exciting and so rich with mystery, especially because I don't speak the language. I only know
Right.
like 5 words so far, which is shameful. But um, it's I it's still, what am I trying? I think that there's so much to learn from history. And I don't mean written history. I mean, like, from traditions and those kinds of things. But I, a fundamentalist or a priest, if you will, in any particular practice, uh, runs the risk of living in the past,
Mm-hmm. Right.
and not learning the new lessons
Right.
that are developing right now. And I am not for a second saying that that's happening uh, in Cree culture, because I don't know anything.
No. Well, I mean,
I
it's
just
different.
want to make sure that I'm not suddenly feeling like I'm, that I know something about this stuff.
No, well, no, for the record, I assume you know nothing. No,
Yeah, I
that you're an
don't.
idiot. No, no, but I know what you mean. But I think like one of the things that I really still enjoy from Christianity is, and in kind of a non dogmatic way, the idea of the Trinity, because uh, I I I feel like what you're describing as a white guy. Um, Entering into Cree spirituality, learning from it, and taking taking what you can, what you can absorb as who you are.
Hmm.
Is there's this? Let's see if I can make this work. So in the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit part of the Trinity, um, uh, there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can view it, but one of the ways that I view it is that the Father is history. The Father is written history,
Mm.
and the Father is what is known and established. And the reason the reason Trinity is kind of cool is that no part of it is bad, but there, I mean, if we apply it in certain ways, that there can be like negative tendencies that could come out of it, right? So the weight of history that you have, it could be considered the Father, um,
Hmm.
and then the Son would be this kind of iconoclast, more temporal, in the here and now person attempting to uh, actually live, right, rather than this tradition. There's both a living in tradition and a necessary breaking of tradition, and a necessary scrambling and recontextualizing happening, um, in the here and now, which is what Jesus did. And I don't mean to be religious again, I'm sounding religious, but then the Holy Spirit is your consciousness moving back and forth between those two things, right?
Mm.
So that the Holy Spirit, it would not be the Spirit, your spirit would be wrong to cut off the past and look to the future and say, this doesn't affect me anymore, I don't need it.
Right. Yeah.
This
Yeah.
giant
Yeah.
weight
Yeah.
behind you pushing you forward. And then it would be wrong to say that's all there is back there,
Right.
like that, there's nothing fresh or new. And so um, yeah, because the way that the way that we have proper movement into life is always going to be this messy kind of thing, combining the old and the new. And um, it would be wrong if you were to try to make the Cree culture and spirituality, if you were to try to pretend that that was now you, and make that,
Right.
start
Yeah.
pretending
Yeah.
that that was the Father behind you,
Yeah.
then you wouldn't be engaging in life. You would just be
Hmm.
cutting off the sun. You would be cutting off the here and now. I don't know if that
Right.
makes any sense.
Well, it makes sense.
Can't amputate it.
But it's also like I can't you can't amputate the sun is what you're
Right. You can't amputate
what you
either
just said,
thing.
but you also can't graft the father. Like I can't like take on a new father and
Right.
be like, oh yes, I have the experiences and the history and
Right.
you know, like
Right.
I don't get like a free pass from any future social outrage because 5 people say that I am Cree now. You know,
Right.
like,
Yeah.
like
Exactly.
it's a deeply personal and mind blowing and humbling thing to do that, but it's not something that is just because Joe says I'm Cree now
Right.
doesn't mean that I was Cree.
Right.
You know,
You
like
can't.
I don't fully understand what it means when he says that. He
Right.
says it with such like passion and finality, but I know that it doesn't like make it's
Yeah.
not suddenly harder for me to go into a convenience store at night and not get followed around by the clerk.
Right.
You know,
Well,
like it hasn't
right.
made me that Cree.
Right. But
You know,
it does, I think it speaks, and this could be kind of an indigenous thing, right? It does speak to the way that his known portion of the community views you, right? It's
right.
it can be the identity that he places on you.
That's true.
And
I
and
mean,
that's legit too, right? But then it's, there's always a much messier
yeah, because
thing
like the
in your
first
life.
time I went to the first couple of ceremonies that I went to before this uh, adoption had happened, I was like, I was just a fish out of water, you know, like I was the only I was the only guy that visibly shouldn't have been there. um, and I wasn't treated like shit or anything, but I was like, I was really uncomfortable because, you know, I was a minority of one
Right.
in a very special uh, arena.
Yeah.
And I was very aware of uh, the last you know, several hundred years.
Right.
um,
That's an important and
and
awkward place to be, I think.
yeah,
Like the
and
awkwardness of it is kind of crucial to it.
yeah, it's true because like I didn't want to draw attention because it's a special thing that's happening, and I didn't want to inject any kind of I didn't want to be a disruption in that it was like my visible presence was pulling someone out of something wonderful and reminding them of the shitty rest of the country that they had fled to have
Right.
this ceremony, you know,
Right.
to have this important thing. And I also didn't want to cause any confusion about like my intention or like that I could be to use the C word, colonizing this ceremony or anything. It was
Right.
just
Yeah.
like I was wildly aware of myself
Right.
at the first couple. And then once I started like was invited to start participating and went to some more, there was I was losing myself in a good way, not my, you know, I wasn't leaving reality or whatever, but I was more a part of the moment. I was more in it. But on occasion I would get, and very rarely would I get some criticism or something that was based on like me not belonging there or something like that. But then after Joe and Emily decided to foist their adoption upon me, all of a sudden he would preempt any of that awkwardness with like, he'd just bring me into the room and introduce me as his son. This is my white son. And it allowed for, it was like a very immediate leveling up as far as my capacity to learn, because I didn't have to deal with all this entry level anxiety,
Right.
Not that I've leveled up in what I've actually learned, but I could I could ignore myself that much more because the attention wasn't being drawn to me. He dismantled that very quickly.
Wow. What a privilege. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be,
I still feel really uncomfortable talking about it because it's very special. And well,
that's cool. Yeah. I mean, we've talked briefly and flirted with talking about it, but I love to hear about it. That's amazing. And it's something that I'm, jealous of. And I think that a lot of people, could really benefit from. And I'm glad that I personally am glad that you're going into it with the kind of spirit that you have, because you don't want to be the white guy there who feels completely entitled. Because that what could possibly be more, I don't know, the gravel in the gravel in the jello than that.
Yeah. 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 I would love to see that skit.
Oh man, I'm sure it's
about because it's such a perfect condensation of like our history here.
Yeah, it's just exactly what's happened over
walking
and over.
in, be like, well,
hey,
this is my party now. Why am I not welcome here? You should be welcoming me.
I'm deeply uncomfortable even just picturing it. But anyway, well, I think that's probably this might be the longest episode that I've ever filmed. But this is the kind of conversations that you and I have, and probably like you're the person that I've had the closest to the kind of conversations that I have on the podcast with.
Right.
And I've had a hard time getting artists. I've reached out to artists that and they typically don't respond at all, or I've gotten some kind responses, but most of them have. Everybody has said no. It's only public intellectuals that like to talk about this stuff, so it's really good.
Right.
I feel like that's something I want to be more a part of the podcast. So this has been great, and
I'm very grateful to be a part of this in this capacity. I mean, I'm a big fan.
Thank you.
And if I didn't have this bug in my brain to make art and was a little bit smarter, I would try to be a public intellectual. So I feel like
I don't know. I don't think it's a smart.
I feel like I'm really having fun here.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, I'm and your encouragement in the podcast has been very important, especially early on to and very few people were listening. Just to know that someone was listening who kind of knew what I was going for, and it means a lot. And you named the podcast, so that's yeah. So anyway, and as we don't actually do in real just friend conversations, I guess we will now like sort of have an official ending to it.
So long.
Yeah. You got any stuff you want to promote to people? No. I will have links though
Okay.
to your stuff. That
Sure. We
people
can
check out.
talk about that once we go into the green room.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. See you, man.
Okay. See ya.